One of the most exciting superhero games on the horizon is Marvel's Wolverine. It's coming to us from Insomniac Games, the developers behind the recent Spider-Man games, and it was actually announced on the same day as Marvel's Spider-Man 2 back in 2021 at the PlayStation Showcase. While Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is well over a year old, having released in 2023, we are yet to see any official release date confirmation or even a new trailer or gameplay for Marvel's Wolverine. Unfortunately, this is hardly surprising. It seems that there has been a fairly tumultuous development cycle when it comes to Wolverine, with the creative director leaving and some restructuring needing to happen, along with a very major leak that occurred in late 2023 that not only revealed a ton of details about Marvel's Wolverine, but Insomniac's lineup of other games and even personal information about developers at Insomniac. Needless to say, it's fair to assume that the game is possibly taking longer than initially expected, but the game is still planned. Insomniac has made it clear that the game is still coming, and who knows, maybe at Summer Games Fest in just a few days here, we'll see another look at Wolverine, or maybe there will be another PlayStation Showcase later in the year. My goal today isn't really to speculate when we'll get more news on Wolverine or when we could see it release, but rather when it does release, the things I would like to see it succeed with. Before I get into it, I'd love to hear from you, so as you're listening to the video, let me know in the comments below what you hope to see from Marvel's Wolverine from Insomniac Games. Also, if you enjoy the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribe for more content like this in the future. But without any further ado, let's dive right in. In my opinion, the thing that every great superhero game does correctly is build a gameplay loop around the character you are playing as. When you're playing Insomniac's Spider-Man games, you feel like Spider-Man traversing through the city and fighting crime. The combat system feels tailored to the acrobatic character. When you play Batman Arkham Knight, you feel like you're playing as Batman. You can call in the Batmobile, you can glide around the city, you have a free-flow combat system, and really well thought out stealth encounters. The same must be true of Wolverine in order for it to be a truly hard-hitting superhero game. I want to feel like it's a gameplay loop built around the character of Wolverine. I don't want to feel like I'm playing Spider-Man in a Wolverine skin. A good example of this is combat. I truly enjoy the combat system of Marvel's Spider-Man, but I don't want to see that replicated in Marvel's Wolverine, at least not without some huge deviations. When I'm playing as Spider-Man, I'm playing as a character who is a hero through and through. He's trying to save people. He's not trying to put his enemies in the hospital or kill them. He just wants to protect innocent people from their schemes. When it comes to Wolverine, he literally has claws that come out of his hands that he uses to slice and dice his enemies. Now, in the movies, you sometimes have this advantage where you can cut away and keep the bloodshed minimum, but that's not so much the case in a game. If we're playing this game looking over Wolverine's shoulder, there's a good chance we're going to have to see the gory mess he leaves in his wake, and honestly, that's pretty true to this character. And that brings me into my next point. Not only does the gameplay have to match the new character, but so does the tone. The lighthearted feel of the Spider-Man games work incredibly well for that IP, but for Wolverine, you need to take it to some darker territory, in my opinion. Wolverine is a much more brooding character who almost becomes animalistic and feral in combat, and I think that needs to be reflected in the tone and again in the gameplay. This of course does not mean that you can't balance out Logan with a character like Jean Grey or Professor X, who can add a little bit of levity to the story and can have a more optimistic view on the world, but this is Marvel's Wolverine. This isn't Marvel's X-Men. I want to see an experience fully dedicated to playing as Logan, with all of his rage and fury, and there can be a character arc. Maybe he doesn't end the game in the same angry place that he might begin it, but I would really like to see the experience dedicated to bringing this character to life. I'd also like to see a bit of a change in approach to how the open worlds work. In the Spider-Man games, you get an expansive New York City to explore, but Spider-Man has a traversal system to justify it, and while with Wolverine you could give him a motorcycle to cruise around on, I don't know that I need an open world nearly as big as Manhattan. In fact, one of my biggest issues with Marvel's Spider-Man is that I feel the side content is pretty lacking. It's a lot of collectathons and things that just aren't that fun to engage with, especially upon replays. And so with Wolverine, I'd be okay with some of that fat being trimmed away, where we could experience a more linear scenario, a more linear story with a smaller open world, or maybe no open world at all. I, for one, would be totally fine if Marvel's Wolverine is a linear game like Uncharted or The Last of Us or Tomb Raider, where the experience is very on rails, but there are these incredible curated set pieces and boss fights in order to make the experience feel truly cinematic. Personally, I think if you really focus on making the gameplay feel true to the character of Wolverine rather than trying to reimagine Spider-Man's gameplay to the character of Wolverine, you're going to have some really cool ideas and a lot of creative gameplay mechanics. If you have a tone that feels true to the character that is built into the gameplay, that is going to enhance the experience. But also, I think that tone needs to carry into the story. I think the story for Marvel's Wolverine, in a lot of ways, is going to be what makes or breaks the experience. I'm going to be totally upfront about this. I do not have nearly as much experience reading Wolverine as I do Spider-Man or Batman. He's a character I'm way less familiar with. I've seen a lot of the films with Hugh Jackman, despite the fact that Hugh Jackman is not the most accurate depiction of the character. I do appreciate the nuance and emotion that Jackman brought to the role. I do think in a lot of ways he elevated it for the film medium, but when it comes to comic accuracy, that's something that Insomniac could achieve at a much higher level in the game. This is actually something that gets me really excited, because if you had told me when I'd played Spider-Man 2018 that Insomniac was interested in working on another Marvel IP and asked me to guess what it was, I would have said, well, Iron Man, maybe Captain America, maybe Thor. Wolverine probably wouldn't have even been in my top 5 guesses because, again, he's not a character that I'm as familiar with. And it gets me really excited to play through this game and gain more familiarity by experiencing Insomniac's take on the character. I feel like I could end up having a similar experience with Wolverine that I did the Arkham games from Rocksteady. Back when I played the Arkham games for the first time, I was pretty young. I'd seen some of the Batman shows and movies and read some of the comics, but I was not the most well-read when it came to Batman. The Arkham games were perfect for me because I knew who Batman was, so there was an immediate buy-in of investment from me as a player, but then I got to experience a world where so much was still new to me. I got to learn about story arcs I'd never read before, characters I'd never seen in the comics yet, and villains that I'd never seen Batman encounter in any meaningful capacity in the mainstream. Those games inspired me to become a much bigger Batman fan. I read a lot more comics, I started reading a lot more wiki pages to learn more about these characters, and today I have a greater appreciation for the character because of those games, and I hope the same is true with Wolverine. I want to truly feel immersed in this character's world to the point that he becomes a new favorite for me. For this reason, I really do want the story to focus on Logan. I don't want it to turn into a big X-Men adventure. I'm fine if they want to do that in a sequel, but I'd rather this first game really invest us in the character of Logan. I'm okay if Jean Grey shows up, or Cyclops shows up, or Professor X shows up, but I'd rather the experience remain focused as much as possible on Wolverine. The big exception to this, of course, is the Hulk, one of the most famous fights that Wolverine has had. If Insomniac is able to utilize the Hulk in their game and have a boss fight against him, that would be pretty cool. I'd also be okay if they find a way to bring Venom or Carnage into the game for a boss fight. And like I said, I don't mind if they start planting the seeds for future appearances from other X-Men members like Cyclops and Jean Grey and Professor X, but I just want the story to be driven by Logan. I want to see iconic villains from Wolverine's Rogues Gallery like Sabretooth and Lady Deathstrike show up. This is another area where I'd be okay pulling from the pool of larger X-Men villains, like if Magneto showed up, that could be cool, but I also think you could focus on Logan's more personal villains. In any case, Insomniac has definitely done a great job with their Spider-Man franchise. I know not a lot of people were sold on the story of Spider-Man 2, but the gameplay was great, and there were a lot of elements that worked quite well in that story, and I hope that carries over into Wolverine. Maybe we'll get an even better story with Wolverine. If that potentially great story is glued together with incredible gameplay and set pieces and boss fights and a tone that matches the character, we're gonna have something great on our hands. But those are my thoughts on Marvel's Wolverine. Let me know in the comments below what you would like to see from Marvel's Wolverine, and also let me know when you think we'll get a chance to see it next. When do you think it's going to release? Thank you all so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and we'll see you guys in the next one.